What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and to another Overwatch League 2022 off-season recap. You'll have to forgive me for going over a week since the last episode. Things have slowed down a fair bit, so there's not as much to cover compared to some of the other crazy long videos so far in this series. It's all good though, because we still do have some fun topics to talk about. How about we begin this video with the London Spitfire, who made a ton of announcements last week. They went ahead and picked up Poco, Backbone, and Provide as new players, but they also decided to bring back Hadi after initially parting ways with him. I guess I'll start with Hadi because I find it very interesting that he's suddenly getting another chance. I've seen many Hadi supporters come out and say that his performance on London last year was not a reflection of how skilled he truly is, and maybe they're onto something there. London felt pretty uncoordinated last year, so maybe he'll have more chances to impress now that the roster is different. He was obviously an incredible player in Contenders who showed great capabilities across multiple metas, so maybe this re-signing is warranted. Either way, it's interesting to see London go back to him despite all the crazy talent within Contenders and whatnot. I'd be interested to know if he was among one of London's top choices at the beginning of the offseason. Either way though, good for Hadi. It's cool to see him get another chance to redeem himself. It's not every day that you get this type of opportunity, so hopefully he makes the most of it. On the topic of tanks, how about we talk about Poco? This is a pretty hype pickup. This is definitely one of the most ideal landing spots for the guy. Poco on a fully EU team sounds right, and more importantly, the odds of him playing obviously skyrocket. That's the big thing that every Poco lover is hoping for. He's not going to have to worry about traveling all over the place this year, hopefully, so that should be all good in that regard. It's been far too long since we've gotten to see Poco get some action. Before Fury took over back in 2020, Poco still showed us that he's got it. He's a very well-rounded off-tank player who you can definitely trust on D.Va and Zarya. It's a truly solid pickup for the London Spitfire. He provides that true veteran guidance that I think a younger team like London will come to appreciate. Poco's very capable, and I'm glad this connection happened. It's for the best, I'd say, for both parties. As the fans, we get to see Poco play more, and he's joining a roster that could really use his help, so it's a solid pickup. Speaking of solid pickups, that gets me into my thoughts on Backbone. This British DPS player is somebody I personally took notice of back in 2020. As most of you know, I don't watch all that much Contenders due to just a lack of time, but back when I was watching EU Contenders to scout both Paris and London players coming into this year, I got a glimpse of what this man was truly capable of, and I gotta say, he left a great first impression. His play on sheer cold was really good. He made a lot of nice individual plays which kept his team in matches. Him and I believe his partner Grathen was his name, they were both great. They showed they were capable of keeping up with the big boys, so seeing Backbone get a promotion makes me at the very least really happy. Backbone is a flex DPS who made a name for himself on characters like Tracer, Echo, and a bunch of other projectile heroes. He rounds out the London DPS line quite nicely. Sparker and Shax, they're more known for the hit scan stuff, while Backbone kind of goes out there and does the heavy lifting at projectile. But the fact that he can also play Tracer is very useful. Literally everyone on that DPS lineup can play her. They have so many different options. It makes mid-game swaps way less of a hassle if you want to have Sparker in full-time on hit scan, but then you also need a flex DPS who can handle the rest as well as Tracer and everything. Backbone gives you that kind of coverage. I'm very pleased about this. Backbone is not this ridiculous top 3 prospect or anything like that, but he is serviceable and I would say he has potential. He's a nice shakeup compared to somebody like Blase, who you kind of already know the potential of. Overall though, that DPS line is looking pretty good, and that's all that matters if you're a London fan. With the crazy emphasis on DPS heading into Overwatch 2, London had to do their part, so it's good to see them being productive in this regard. But anyway, how about we discuss Provide? He too is from the UK, and he'll be the team's new flex support. You may also recognize him though as Slur. You know, the guy that was on the 2020 Valiant for like a solid 5 seconds. Yeah, that guy. Paris Eternal Flex Support Khan, I believe, referred to Provide as his day one rival. If he's getting that level of praise, then you already would have to assume he's fairly capable. I remember people saying he was a good pickup for the Valiant back in the day, but things just didn't work out because of some things that he said in the past. More on that in a bit. Recently though, Provide spent time on the collegiate team Maryvale Esports as well as Dark Mode during the spring and early summer. He's got solid mechanics and he's definitely not a garbage pickup from a talent standpoint. However, This move does come with controversy in the eyes of some people, because earlier I mentioned that Provide was on the Valiant for a brief amount of time, and there is a big reason for that. I'm not entirely sure how he is here in the present, but a few years ago, he was known as a toxic player, and there were screenshots of him using racial slurs back in 2018, and on top of that, he seemed to say some not so great things on the ranked EU ladder. But a lot of time has passed since then, and many people say he has matured and changed for the better. But even so, there's still going to be a lot of people on the internet who express displeasure over the signing. Does he deserve a second chance? I mean, that's kind of up to you to decide. I'm just here to report on the news. So yeah, London signed a new flex support with decent potential, but there definitely is some backlash that comes with this signing, as people who don't believe Provide should be getting a second chance are angry. I'm not exactly sure if this negative publicity is going to result in anything. I guess we'll find out soon enough. In the meantime, be on the lookout for some more London news very soon, as they still do need to sign a main support, and if they picked up 4 players in the span of 1 week, it's safe to assume that something else has to be coming soon. For now though, that's all the London news I have for you in today's video. So now on to the San Francisco Shock, who made yet another huge pickup out of contenders with the addition of former Redbird Esports and American Tornado Flex DPS, Sam. Another player from that insane team makes the league. They're taking over, and I would say rightfully so. Sam is yet another example of a nutty player coming from that team, and because he's so flexible, there is genuinely a possibility he could get playtime even with Proper on the roster. The man plays a mean Echo for sure, but he plays a lot of niche stuff along with the main meta heroes we usually get to see. You need him on like Mei or Reaper, he's got you. You want him to play Sombra? He's still got you. He's a great American talent who helps the Shock gain even more riches with their new young damage dealers. Like, there's not much else to say aside from that. This man has quite the ceiling. Those American Tornado players are no joke. I think that Sam could be nuts at the tier 1 level because you're combining a bright young mind like his with super genius coaching. The rest of the league is in trouble if he realizes his true potential. Proper, Sam, and Kilo are bright young stars in the making, and that is one heck of a rotation. All of these guys already have insane resumes with tons of success, and now they have access to even better resources and some incredible leadership. Sorry to say it, Shock haters, but this team could be very scary still. I don't think they're going anywhere. They've got the coaching and the star power to be a real Western region menace yet again. Maybe not like at the height of their power good, but still reasonably solid and a team you definitely have to take seriously. Now on to the Florida Mayhem, who went out there and made a bunch of new pickups. First up, they decided to make the finishing touches at their DPS line with the additions of Mirror and Hydron. Hydron is the noteworthy pickup here, because guess what? He's yet another American Tornado and Redbird Esports based player. I am telling you, ladies and gentlemen, these boys are coming. Hydron is an American DPS who is primarily known for Tracer and hitscan characters like Widow and Cassidy. I still remember him absolutely popping off in the Gauntlet show match between American Tornado and British Hurricane. This dude was a real problem. I mean, an absolute menace to that Hurricane backline. Hydron was so unbelievably clutch. He was a pleasure to watch. You'd have to imagine that he is going to be the primary playmaker of this Florida team. He might be young, but he's got that killer pop-off potential, and if Florida gives him the right resources, he will find you ways to win games. There's no way of telling for sure how much Hydron can carry, but I'm willing to bet that he receives a lot of attention. This is a massive pickup, and there were rumors that Florida had interest in former American Tornado players, so good on them for actually recruiting one of them. It'll make starting from the bottom a bit easier. Moving on to Mirror, there's a sense of mystery behind him. He never played a ridiculous amount on the Gladiators, so there's likely some stuff that we still don't entirely know about him at this level. I think he's a confident guy who is definitely hungry to grow. But obviously, Florida value that flexibility a lot. That's the big factor with somebody like Mirror. He can do so many different things for a team, as seen by how the Glads used to utilize him back in the day. He can do serious work on projectile heroes and even swap onto different roles if necessary. Obviously, he has a lot to prove, but he has that versatility factor going for him, and since the Mayhem are starting off fresh, that means that nothing is set in stone and he could have some sort of role within this team. Mirror absolutely covers things that Checkmate does not, so a DPS rotation is probably going to happen, and who gets played will depend on the meta. I think that Mirror and Checkmate are playing a big role on this Florida team this year. In my opinion, a lot of this is up to them to decide how far their team can go. If either of them play well enough alongside Hydron, that'll heavily increase how competitive the Mayhem can be on a game-to-game basis. It should be fun to see how the two of these guys do in a redemption arc of sorts. But wait, Florida fans, I've got more news for you. you because Adam, former LA Valiant off-tank and Australian Contenders off-tank, has joined the Florida Mayhem. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am to see him get another chance at the league. I mean, the entire stuff that happened with the Valiant was so incredibly sad. It seemed like it was a 1 in a million shot for him to get into the league to begin with, because he's playing in more of an unpopular region, if you will, in Australia. So when the whole Valiant drama went down, it was like, what's next for Adam? Does he even have another chance? It kind of seemed like he was running on empty and there wasn't much hope left, but the Mayhem have come in and saved the day, and I'm so happy about that. Adam deserves to show us what he can do at this level. We saw what he was capable of in Australia, and during the brief amount of time he played on other contenders teams like Uprising Academy. We know that he can be a good player, but now it's just a matter of seeing what he can do under that professional coaching. Is this one of your like blow your socks off types of moves that really get you excited as a Mayhem fan? Probably not, but for all of the Adam supporters out there and all the people who felt bad for him after the Valiant stuff, this is really great to see. And I mean, just like what I've been talking about recently with the Mayhem, you've got to give new players a chance, you know? You got to take a couple of risks here and there because the Mayhem are starting off fresh and they're not going to go anywhere anytime soon if they don't give a shot to some young talent out there to see what they're capable of. They're not just going to magically become good through this type of rebuild. You really have to try and develop your talent. For those who need a refresher on what Adam kind of specializes in, he's mostly known for D.Va and Zarya. We've seen him play the Sigma and everything as well, but I'd say D.Va and Zarya are his two biggest strengths. He's won Australian contenders multiple times, and he has shown that he is capable and that a lot of teams do seem to think of him very highly despite him playing from an unpopular region like Australia. I mean, this is two Overwatch League teams we're talking about who have gotten attention, who have really just sat there and said, we think this guy can do something for us. But of course, you also have to give credit where it's due to Adam, because now this is the second time where he has tried out for a team and has succeeded. So yeah, that clearly shows you that he might be capable of something at this level. I'm not entirely sure how good he could be. It's kind of a mystery, but I'm excited to see what he's got, and I'm glad that he finally gets to fulfill his dream after that unfair BS that happened last year. Now I wanted to take some time to talk about the Houston Outlaws, who announced the signing of Lastro, and oh my goodness, talk about stacking your flex support position. Lastro and Iris, that is absolutely bonkers. In theory, the Outlaws probably did not need him, but we've seen a couple of teams already kind of go for a stacked approach at certain positions, and flex support is one of them, so it's understandable why Houston would go this route. I mean, they already had Pelican and Dante, so clearly they're valuing versatility big time this year, so yeah, good for them. Lastro and Iris, I think, could be a nice pair. Yeah, I think in some aspects their hero pools do overlap, but in other scenarios you could see Lastro play over Iris like in Zenyatta metas, because in my opinion he definitely does have the superior Zen. But then if you're just going to play Baptiste or you're going to play Ana, you might want to consider Iris instead. Something else to think about is the idea of a double flex support meta. If we see like Baptiste Zen, I would say that Iris and Lastro would be disgustingly good together. Imagine having Lastro on the Zen plus Iris on the Bap. We're talking a god tier support line at that point. They could be very strong from a playmaking standpoint. And I mean, if we're really going to get into the nitty gritty, Lastro could technically flex onto Brigitte as well, because he did play a little bit of her on the Season 3 Valiant. So if you get a main support in Houston's shoes where he's just not that good on break, whoever it may be, you can put Lastro on there technically. I mean, hey, whether it's weird or not, it's up to you to decide, but the Outlaws really do want to go with a versatile group, and I think that's totally fair because a lot of other teams are seriously stacking their rosters this year, so the Outlaws are making the right approach in my opinion, and I think that adding Lastro on is a wonderful addition. The final player we are going to address in this video happened all the way back on October 31st when former Element Mystic and T1 main support Unique made his way onto the Guangzhou Charge. I would say this guy was on a lot of people's radars last year as well as this year, so it's great to finally see him get a shot at the league. Unique is a respectable player. While I personally wouldn't call him like the best of this rookie class, he still does have a lot of room to improve, and he has proven himself in the past. That T1 team was playing well the last few months, and he was basically the starter the whole way through. And some people also may forget that he was a member of that dominant Element Mystic team which won Contenders and the 2019 Gauntlet. You know, that same team that had Exy and Sparkle and Hanbin. Yeah, that one. He was a part of that roster. He's a capable competitor who has been of value to multiple Korean rosters. We're talking top tier Korean rosters. He's the kind of guy the Charge absolutely need to try and take a chance on if they want to try and improve. Last year was a disaster, and the Charge, if they're going to come back, need to upgrade that main support position desperately, since Mondu didn't really pan out the way they were hoping he would. Unique honestly has the potential to be an upgrade right from day one, and if the Charge can get him a good partner, they seriously might be back in business as a, at least somewhat respectable team. Hopefully they find the right guy. Next, we've got a quick retirement to discuss. Linkzr announced that he is retiring as a player over the weekend, and it kind of goes without saying that he already ran his course in this league. His interest in playing was also going down, I would say, and he just hasn't been able to keep up with the other hits gains the way he used to. Now was the right time for him to hang it up. As for what comes next, Linkzr hinted that he has a strong interest in pursuing professional Valorant, and honestly, I hope he goes for it. He's a very talented FPS player with godlike aim, and I could genuinely see Linkzr thriving in this type of game. If that's what he decides to go with next, I'm super happy for him. But for now, let's appreciate Linkzr's legacy. Again, the last few years have been kind of irrelevant for him, I would say, but at his peak, he was a monster player, and it goes all the way back to that World Cup with Finland when he made those huge hero plays on Tracer. Then from there, he became a staple on the Outlaws. I think that 2018 in particular was when he hit his peak as a true top hits gain player of the game. 2018 Linkzr hit different. He consistently kept up with some elite players and in some instances was rolling them. I can never forget how easy he made it look on Widowmaker. Junkertown was his team's map back in the day, and he's a good reason why. And on top of that, Linkzr is such a bright guy. He's kind, and you could tell that his teammates enjoyed being around him. The man had passion, and some people might say too much passion, because Linkzr had some of the highest standards we have seen from a player in this game. If he was anything but perfect, he would bash himself all the time. He had such a grinder mindset, and he just wanted to be the best. Mad respect for that. I'm gonna miss him a ton. Hopefully he thrives in Valorant if that's what he does next. Now for some coaching news. The talk of the town is the Seoul Dynasty, who announced their entire coaching staff for the year. And surprise, Tobi is back with Seoul. But what's crazy is that he's going to be the head coach for them. It's amazing that Tobi is back, but to have his first coaching gig be a head coaching job is wild. I am super happy that we get more Tobi, but even I recognize that this could be risky. Tobi may be a veteran who is extremely experienced and knowledgeable, but I don't think he's ever seriously coached a team like this before. And if Seoul flop this year, a lot of fingers will be pointed at him for sure. There is a ton of pressure on Tobi to do a good job. It's not going to be easy, but if there's one guy who could probably handle it, it's Tobi. Again, he's been around this game since the very beginning. He's smart. He's knowledgeable. He comes off as the type of guy who knows what he's doing. And luckily for him, he's got two good things working to his advantage. One is that Seoul still have their assistant coach MMA, and surely he could teach a thing or two to Tobi when he needs help. But also, Tobi is working with some very talented and intelligent players. It's not like he's developing a super young and inexperienced roster. A lot of these guys are, or once were, superstars. Tobi has a lot of help, so maybe things could end up working out in his favor. There's a sense of riskiness present, but it's also important to recognize that Tobi does have a lot of resources. In my opinion, he could be an excellent coach. There's no guarantee that him and Seoul will find success, but I believe there is reason to trust in Tobi. Let's give him a chance before jumping to any conclusions on whether or not this was a good idea. And finally, as we move on from Seoul, we've got another retired veteran getting his first coaching job as Rascal joins the Dallas Fuel as an assistant coach. And yet again, I can't help but feel happy. It's amazing that legends of the game are sticking around with us, but at the same time, it's wild to see that their first coaching jobs are at the Overwatch League level. The only thing that makes this not as bad or as risky as the Tobi signing, let's say, is that Rascal is an assistant rather than the guy in charge of everything. I believe that having an assistant role is a great way to get your feet wet, and in Rascal's case, he's in a great situation just because he's learning under one of the best, aka Rush. And just like Tobi, Rascal, he's been around the block a ton, so I think that as a longtime player, he will know a lot, and he probably will be able to contribute in some ways. And I really think that him being an assistant who works one-on-one with players could be greatly beneficial to the Fuel. Rascal's that high-energy type of guy with a lot of passion. He could be a great inspiration to others in the workplace. There's a small risk factor, of course, that comes with this, like I was talking about with Tobi, but hey, Rascal does have the resources here, and along with that, him not being the true leader won't make it as risky if it doesn't work out, and you probably won't get punished as hard. Rush and Aid, I would assume, are both going to be there no matter what, so you might as well take a chance and see what happens. It's interesting that Rascal gets to be a part of Dallas, by the way, of all teams. That's going to make for a crazy redemption arc. After playing and failing with that Season 1 team, he's come back to right his wrongs from a disastrous 2018 roster. It's wild to think that Rascal is a coach as well as Tobi. It's incredible how fast time can go by. At one point, these two were playing each other in Apex, and now they're coaching new generations of players in some of their former competition. I cannot wait to see what they contribute, and I hope you're excited as well. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for you today. Let me know how you're feeling about the current off-season news in the comments below. A lot of juicy stuff happened recently, so surely everybody has an opinion. And if you enjoyed today's video and you want more off-season recaps like this one, definitely hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date on all of my content. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.